Ibon means bird in Filipino. It represents the nation's aspiration for freedom. The martial law period under Marcos was a time of severe repression. Even the right to information was suppressed. IBON was established during this time in 1978 to keep people informed on urgent national and international issues. It was co-founded by religious of the Good Shepherd sister Soledad Perpignan. IBON came out with an independent fact sheet using a borrowed mimeograph machine. The fact sheet was called Facts and Figures. It was written in a popular style to be accessible to as many people as possible. Volunteers contributed stick drawings and cartoons. There was a ready audience from the very start. The 200 copies of the first issue quickly ran out and another 2,000 was produced. Through the years, IBON has explained socioeconomics from the point of view of the people. It has become a reference for researchers, educators, policymakers, and grassroots advocates. IBON continues to promote nationalist and progressive ideas. IBON does this through research, publications, education and trainings, media and popular materials, networks, partnerships with schools, and commercial outlets. IBON also influences policy and practice and advocates at the international level. More than 30 years since its founding, IBON remains committed to providing a solid research and education to the broadest number of people, as they take action to build an economy that serves the needs and interests of the Filipino people.
We are about to start our program. First, our house rules and some announcements. The estimated running time of the program is 2.5 hours. During this time, may we request everyone to keep their mobile phones in silent mode. Only water is allowed inside the auditorium. Food, juice, coffee, and other beverages may be consumed at the receiving area. Comfort rooms are located by the entrance of the auditorium. While the program is ongoing, use the space at the back of the farthest seats and the left and right sides of the hall when going out of the auditorium. In case of an emergency, please exit the venue calmly and in an organized manner. Aside from the main entrance and exit by the registration area, there is an emergency exit on the other side of the auditorium. There will be an open forum after the inputs and discussions. You may submit a written question using the bottom portion of the program sheet, or you may ask your questions using the mic on the floor. To give the welcoming remarks,
bukod sa bigas, tumaas din ang presyo ng kamatis sa mga pamilihan.
The COMELEC will start printing again official ballots,
describing the 2025 spending plan as suboptimal.
Agriculture and Forestry, which said nearly $2 million.
Its deeply destabilizing actions in the region are compelling the U.S. to counteract.
Ang isinusulong na impeachment laban kay Vice President Sara Duterte.
To give the welcoming remarks, here is Sir Rolando de los Reyes III, Chairperson of the All-UP Academic Employees Union, Diliman.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Okay, correction lang po, ako po yung the second. Kasi yung the third po ay kapatid ko. Baka magalit siya. Char. Okay, so mabuhay po sa ating lahat, no? Isang maalab na pagbati po sa ating lahat na naririto sa bulwagan na ito, no? Para ho makapag-participate po dito sa ating Birdtalk, no? So, isang pasasalamat kay Professor Ian Fontanilla ng Institute of Biology na malugod niyang pinagamit muli ang kanilang bulwagan, no, para sa ating meeting, no? So panatilihin po natin malinis ang ating bulwagan at pati yung nasa labas po, no, hanggang sa ating pagtatapos ng ating programa, no? So, 2 punto lang po, no, sa ating welcome remarks na gusto kong may pahagi sa inyo, no? Ako'y malugod na nagpapasalamat sa IBON Foundation, sa Birdtalk, kasi binibigyan niyo po kami ng armas laban sa kultura ng kasinungalingan na pinapamayagpag na ating pamahalaan ngayon, no? Dalawa kasi yung layunin ng pamahalaan natin, no? Una sa lahat ay panatilihing mangmang ang ating mga kababayan. At kami ho sa akademikong sektor, ramdam po namin yan, lalo na ho sa ating mga kabataan ngayon. Imagine simpleng coordination letter, hirap na po magsulat ang mga kabataan. Yung pagbabasa ho ng simpleng text, sabi nga po natin, di ba, learning poverty natin, 9 out of 10 students as early as 10 years old doesn't know how to read a simple text. Ganun po ang layunin ng pamahalaan, panatilihing tayong mangmang. Kaya ho malaking bagay itong mga bird talks natin kasi we will actually be informed about what is really happening in our country, no? Isang bagay na hindi natin makukuha sa mainstream media na pinapalabas ngayon. Kaya salamat sa outer media kasi kayo nagbibigay talaga ng ibang perspektibo. Pero pangalawang layunin ng ating pamahalaan ay panatilihin rin tayong magkakahati-hati, no? Hindi lang ho sabong, sarabongbong, no, ang nangyayari ngayon, kundi marami pa ho mga mapanghati na eskema ang ginagawa ng pamahalaan, no? Nariyang pag-awayin tayo sa pagitan ng Sampaguita Girl versus Guardia, no? O kaya pag-awayin pa, no, yung simpleng sino ba ang rom-com queen, no? Kung si Sarah G ba, no? O kaya si Tony G ba? O kaya sino po ba isa? Si Jenny Lee Mercado daw. Lumabas na yun yung nagsabi daw si Dennis Trillo na si Jenny Lee Mercado daw ang rom-com queen, no? Mga sabihin na natin mga ginagawa nilang bobo yung diskurso ngayon, no? Hindi natin na itataas yung diskurso ng ating mga mamamayan. At yun ho yung pakay natin ngayong hapon na ito, no? Na itaas natin, no, yung diskurso, panatiliin natin buhay, no, yung mga issue ng kahirapan, korupsyon, at kawalang pananagutan na patuloy na namamayani sa ating pamahalaan, sa ating bansa ngayon. At paano natin magagawa yun kung wala tayong datos? Hindi ho tayo pwedeng gawa ng gawa at syempre, no, commercial na rin sa ating lahat. Sama po tayo sa malawakang kilos protesta sa Enero 31st, no? Yan po ay sa Liwasang Bonifacio, no? At ito hong mga datos na ipapakita sa atin, ang mga kwento na ipapakita ng IBON Foundation, ang magiging armas natin. Na hindi lamang po tayong gawa ng gawa, no? Kasi mali natin, baka biglang hilahin ka, no, ng isang ABS-CBN o GMA News at sabihin sa iyo, ba't ka nandito sa rally, di ba? So mainam na dito ho sa ating bulwagan, marinig natin ano ang datos, bakit tayo nagwewelga, bakit tayo nagrarally, bakit patuloy natin tinutuligsa, hindi lamang po yung 600 million ni Sara, kundi 4.6 billion ni Marcos, no? Na dapat patampuhin natin yon na hindi lamang po yung kay Sara, kundi kay Bongbong pa rin. So muli po, maraming salamat sa inyong pagdala ho dito. Nawa ho ay maging mabunga at maging produktibo ho ating hapon ngayon. At makinig tayo kung ano yung magiging datos at armas na ating gagamitin, no, sa ating mga kilos protesta. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
For the opening remarks, please welcome Ms. Early Sol A. Gadong, University of the Philippines Faculty Regent.
Maayong hapon sa aton tanan. It is an honor for the UP Office of the Faculty Regent to co-present and open this year's Birdtalk by the IBON Foundation. For many years, Birdtalk has been a vital platform for critical discourse that unflinchingly confronts the pressing realities of our time. As we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are in a crossroads marked by both urgent challenges and tremendous opportunities. Hindi na po lingid sa atin, gaya nga ng binanggit ni Kuya Rolly ngayon lang, hindi na po lingid sa atin ang tindi ng mga pagsubok na kinakaharap natin mula sa walang tigil na pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin hanggang sa lantarang panloloko sa atin ng mga nasa kapangyarihan. Bilang isang math teacher, kasuklam-suklam po halimbawa ang walang pakundangang pagmamanipula sa mga datos at estadistika, kagaya na lamang sa datos ng unemployment at poverty index para lamang i-project na maayos ang lagay ng ating bansa. Lagi kong pinapaalalahanan ang aking mga estudyante na while the numbers may not lie, the data can be tortured to say what we want it to say. And we must be critical enough to know when we are being played for fools. Ngunit, kagaya ng binanggit ko po, kasabay ng mga pagsubok na ito ay nahaharap din tayo sa kakaibang pagkakataon. Ngayon, higit kailanman ay nararapat na nating sunggaban ang pagkakataong himukin ang ating mga kababayan, mga katrabaho, kaeskwela, pati kapitbahay na kumilos at magpakilos lalo pat nalalapit na ang ating midterm elections. Malaki ang papel na ating gagampanan, lalo na para sa mga nariritong bahagi ng akademya. Lagit-laging bahagi ng responsibilidad natin ang pagpapalakas ng ating hanay, hindi lang sa paglikha ng kaalaman, kundi sa paggamit din nito para sa kaikabubuti ng lipunan, lalong-lalo na yung mga nasa laylayan. If I may share, at the heart of the Office of the Faculty Regent's vision is a commitment to kaayuhan. Kaayuhan is a Visayan word that captures the essence of wellness and collective being. Kaayuhan reminds us that progress in the academe is not measured only by economic gains or H indices or faculty rank or impact factors or the controversial world rankings. It is measured by the extent to which we have uplifted lives, protected rights, and advanced justice. We must remain steadfast in defending academic freedom and ensure that our campuses are spaces where critical thinking and freedom of expression thrive. Kaya natutuwa po ako na sa naulit na pagkakataon ay naging venue ulit, no, ang University of the Philippines para sa ating Birdtalk. We must resist attempts to stifle dissent and reject narratives that prioritize private interests over the welfare of the masses. Through forums like Birdtalk, we reinforce our collective commitment to illuminating truths and creating alternatives that truly serve the people. Let this forum be an act of solidarity, rooted in the belief that knowledge, when wielded responsibly, can catalyze change and inspire us to continue working toward an enduring and progressive academe that does not shy away from its responsibility of serving the people. Muli po, mainit nga pag-abi-abi sa aton tanan. Welcome to Birdtalk Yearstarter 2025. Padayon kita, kag madamo gid nga salamat.
We kindly call on Sonny Africa and Rosario Guzman to go on stage for a photo op with Miss Early Sol Gadong. Okay. Our house rules and some announcements. The estimated running time of the program is 2.5 hours. During this time, may we request everyone to keep their mobile phones in silent mode. Only water is allowed inside the auditorium. Food, juice, coffee, and other beverages may be consumed at the receiving area. Comfort rooms are located by the entrance of the auditorium. While the program is ongoing, use the space at the back of the farthest seats and the left and right sides of the hall when going out of the auditorium. In case of an emergency, please exit the venue calmly and in an organized manner. Aside from the main entrance and exit by the registration area, there is an emergency exit on the other side of the auditorium. There will be an open forum after the inputs and discussions. You may submit a written question using the bottom portion of the program sheet, or you may ask your question using the mic on the floor. And now, please welcome our host for the IBON Birdtalk Yearstarter 2025, Kyla De Quiros.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Raleigh and Ms. Sol, for your opening remarks. I am Kyla De Quiros of the Council for People's Development and Governance, and I am your host to the IBON Birdtalk Yearstarter 2025. The Birdtalk is made possible in partnership with Alter Media, All UP Academic Employees Union, and the Office of the Faculty Regent. And of course, we are also live on the Facebook accounts of IBON Foundation, IBON iPad, and IBON Bookshop. We thank our cross-posters for taking us to a much wider audience online. We are in partnership with AGHAM, Agroecology X, Alliance for Consumer Protection, Philippine Economical Peace Platform, Bunyog ng Pagkakaisa, CEGP, ILER, Inclusibo, Lapis, Panatang Luntian, Pinoy Weekly, Samasa Alumni Association, FYT, Para, Living Laudato Si, Codal Productions, Ecumenical Bishops Forum, Para Advocates for Inclusive Transport, Pitik Bulag, UP CSWCD, PUP Economics Research Society, Masipag, Consumers Union of the Philippines, Rappler, Philippine Collegian, Stan PLM, Now You Know, Suki at CPDG. Birdtalk is IBON Foundation's biannual forum where IBON Foundation presents its analysis of the country's most urgent socio-economic and political issues. We assess major economic and political developments, particularly of the past 6 months, while also laying down the prospects for Filipinos in the face of the current national situation. Are you guys ready to learn this afternoon? That's the energy I want. So, without further ado, I'm introducing our first speaker for this afternoon. He finished his master's degree in development studies and bachelor's in philosophy and economics at the London School of Economics and Political Science. He is a member of the IBON Board of Trustees. To talk about what's happening in the May 2025 elections and beyond, let's welcome IBON's Executive Director, Mr. Jose Enrique Sonny Africa.
Thank you. Sige. Magandang hapon. Don't take offense, Kaya. Masyado akong tumatangkad. Stress ako. Sige. Let me just time myself. Okay. Thank you for coming. The introductory remarks were stressful. Supposedly, armasa namin kayo ng datos. So, I comply. So, lots of data here. Learn something, Kyla. I'm hoping then they can learn something. So, wishful thinking. Even bird talks usually revolve around 3 major concerns. What's the problem? What's to be done? Who's to do it? So, that's going to be more or less our three main questions for the presentation now. Now, maybe for those who've been to Bird Talks before, one little tweak that we decided to do this particular Bird Talk, not this whole year, is to step back a bit from all the noise happening right now, especially the political noise. The reason for that is, I think the last months, at the very least, years for many, but the last few months have been highlighting super big problems in the economy for the people. On the other hand, a couple of days ago, I watched an interview of Sec Recto in Davos. I'm not sure if that, sociale, snow and everything. He was gushing about Philippine economic growth being among the fastest in, well, he said the world, and then he backtracked, fastest in Asia. He gloated about so much revenues, record revenues. He also gloated about unemployment falling to decades lows in the Philippines. That was 2 or 3 days ago. In the run-up to this Bird Talk, nakaka-trigger. Nakaka-trigger because it's not true. It's not true that the Philippines is developing. It's not true we're an economic superstar in Asia. Again, that's a term they use in presentations in Japan, in the UK. Things are pretty bad. So for this particular Bird Talk, we want to give an explanation of that great disconnect between government hype and what people are feeling on the ground. And that disconnect, I think, will be clearest if we step back and take a more macro and historical view. So maraming data, but that's to stress that there is a big problem that if you don't look at it from the big picture, you kind of get lost in the noise and details of today. Do I keep saying next, 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 next? Oh. Next. Okay. These are I think, 5 super important messages that hopefully you'll be convinced of after a few minutes. First, the framework is, of course, for IBON, I think for all progressives, a lot of the noise happening today is about May 2025, which is about May 2028. But we want to step back, look at, of course, the elections are important. There's a political exercise. But we want to look at the elections beyond the political noise around it, but looking at the economic challenges from the people's perspective of what we should expect from people we'll be electing in May 2025 or beyond. We have 5 major points that hopefully will be something you pick up from us. If we're wrong, please correct us. We're very happy to be corrected, but since I have the podium, I'm going to bludgeon you with data and charts to at least give me an advantage for that argument. 5 major points. First, growth is there, the statistics are there, but something never mentioned by the government, growth is at a very low level of development. It's not being felt by the people. Second important point, the joblessness of growth, also the incomelessness of growth is actually getting worse and it's being hidden by labor force statistics. That's important because those two are connected. The labor force figures are something that the government is so proud about. Third point, the government, the private sector and foreign capital have been investing, the government infrastructure, corporations in their businesses, also foreign investors, slowing a bit but still investing. But want to be clear, if those hail the steps to development, they're actually not leading us to development. So I think the more accurate formulation is they are investing not in the country's development, but in the country's under development. Hopefully, after those 3 premises are established, we'll get convinced that the only path to progress is not what the Philippine Development Plan says. It's not the empty promises of politicians. It's not even the dogmatic statements of economic managers. Hopefully, it will be clear national industrialization really is the only path to progress for the Philippines. Last point, bring it all to get back into the question of the political exercise coming up. Categorical statement, the sort of progressive economic leadership we need won't come from the Marcoses or the Dutertes or any politician invested in gaining from the inequitable status quo. It is mass movements that are most important, most of all. So I want to sort of drill home that point about we have to look at the Philippines' economic structures because a lot of the problems we're facing today, high prices, joblessness, not enough incomes, high poverty, worsening hunger, and all of that, all of those are rooted in the Philippine economic structure. Next slide. Click. Okay. We do believe in the growth figures, to be clear. I don't think anyone has come out with any reason to doubt the government statistics, so those are just the growth figures. Do want to stress, growth right now, 5.8% for the first 3 quarters of 2024. They're actually at a lower level compared to the 6 to 7% before COVID. So just putting out there, we're not big fans of growth, but just putting it out there that growth is actually slowing. The next slide is actually more important. Growth has been rapid in the Philippines for actually about a decade and a half right now. And the next slide, where's the next, there. The next slide will answer the question, is that growth trickling down? Is it actually making people better? Super important chart, not this one, the other one, back there. The blue bars are economic output per capita, is GDP per capita. So if you've heard all that nonsense about, the Philippines is going to be an upper middle income country, that's dividing, GNI by the population to get GNI per capita. The blue bar shows that since 1983, the first time that SWS started measuring poverty, the blue bar shows that not just that GNI or GDP per capita has been increasing, it's been increasing a lot and very quickly since the mid-2000s. So all this hype about economic growth, fastest in Asia, it's kind of old now. I mean, it's been thrown in the air for so long. What do we want to stress by superimposing SWS figures for self-rated poverty? It should be striking. Despite much faster economic growth, reflected in growth outpacing the population, reflected in very rapid increases in gross domestic product per capita, poverty is flat. It has been flat at more or less 40 to 50% at the exact same period that growth started accelerating. So that's so important because all these grumblings we hear about, that growth is in the papers, it's used for economic propaganda, but it's not felt. I think that shows in a simple chart that growth is not trickling down. Next slide. This is just same exercise, blue bar, GDP per capita. The green line is actually self-rated poverty by SWS until 2023. The red line on top, I think is quite important. These are the people, includes the people that SWS calls borderline. So they're not poor. They don't call themselves poor, but they're also not poor. They're on the borderline. But if you're on the borderline, you're kind of vulnerable. So it sounds kind of poor to me, with high price and stuff. What does the red line say? Situation's actually worse. If self-rated poverty was almost 50% in 2023, if you add those on the borderline, balancing, trying not to fall into poverty, that bumps up poor and vulnerable Filipinos from half the population of families to almost 8 out of 10 families. And I think that's so important to see where we are. Again, despite rapid growth, despite growth outpacing the population, leading to very rapid GDP per capita increases, there is no basic change in the number of poor people, nor in the number of poor and vulnerable Filipinos. So I think to bear that in mind, that should explain why people are so disgruntled. Next slide. I won't speak for IBON. I really hate all this talk about upper middle income country. Because it seems like, oh my God, we're going from lower middle income to upper middle income. We're catching up to all the richies. That's not true. You can't see it because there are too many countries. We plotted the 193 countries in the world, left to right, in terms of their GDP per capita. So you have countries like, I can't even see it now, maybe Luxembourg or Norway at the end, the richest countries per capita, and then I think some sub-Saharan countries in the left side. Where's the Philippines? In 2023, the Philippines is 150th out of 220 countries. Despite upper middle income hype, we're still in the bottom third of countries worldwide. We're not catching up. Also, with $5,230 per capita, GNI per capita in the Philippines, that's not even, well, that's barely 1/4 of the global average of almost $19,000. So again, to Cesar's point, this, we're not catching up. We're not doing great. There's a lot of hype, but it's not really happening. Next slide. Okay, so if we believe the growth figures, but we believe the poverty figures, what's up? Where is the growth going? The charts on the left, the chart on the left shows corporate profits of the top 1,000 corporations in blue. Huge increase in the last decade and a half to over 2 trillion pesos last year. The red bar there on the left chart is the net income of the companies listed in the Philippine Stock Exchange, also increasing to 1.2 trillion last year. On the right side, the bottom right is the combined net worth of the 40 richest Filipinos. The gray bar is their absolute wealth. The red line is their wealth as a share of the economy. The upper right-hand side, the wealth of just the 3 richest Filipinos, Villar, Razon, Ang, same sort of metrics. What does this slide show? This slide shows where the growth goes. There's a much more stronger correlation between growth and profits and wealth than between growth and poverty. So there's no trickle-down effect, or barely any trickle-down effect. What we see is prosperity gushing up to the hands of a few billionaires, a few families, a few corporations. Next slide. I'll just jump through this, but to stress the point, the red line, the fat red line, 2 different charts, these are unemployment rates. So in 2016, first quarter, it was 5.8%. Right now, the latest data is 3.9%. So categorically, unemployment is falling. Of course, the big spike was during COVID when, well, no one was working, but NGOs are working. But unemployment, by official figures, definitely falling. Same line on the right side. The left side, already shown earlier, but those are the SWS, self-rated poverty and borderline. So again, notice, since the pandemic especially, unemployment going down, but poverty going up, especially in the last year. Also, the number of borderline kind of staying flat. Someone might say, yeah, but those are private outfits. Well, unfortunately, the government doesn't care enough about poverty to measure it more frequently. I think the president of Sony was on and said, if you can't count it, you can't control it. If you don't want to control it, you don't care about it. Poverty figures in the Philippines used to be done every 3 years, now it's done every 2 years, but it's still about 6 months to a year delayed. The only high-frequency poverty-related statistic we have is from the Bangko Sentral. The blue line there is the number of households the Bangko Sentral says don't have savings. Not just no savings in the bank, no savings at all. That has been flat at about 7 out of 10 Filipino families since 2016, with actually a huge increase the last year to 74%. 3 out of 4 Filipino households don't have savings. 3 out of 4 Filipino households, that kind of correlates with the self-rated poverty plus borderline poor. So there's no single statistic that's perfect, but if you put lots of statistics together, you kind of get an idea. And I think the fairest way to describe poverty in the Philippines, it's growing, has been growing under the Marcos administration, and is not being affected by supposedly improving unemployment figures. Under the Marcos administration, hunger has grown, has more than doubled to 7.2 million families as of December 2024. The number of poor has increased to 6 out of 10 Filipino families, about a 4.5 million increase in poor families since June 2022. So the elections, hurrah, good for some, not for a lot. Next slide. These chart the real value of the minimum wage in the country's 17 regions. The red line is average of the minimum wage across all 17 regions. Conclusion I want to draw is that the minimum wage in 16 regions is lower in value today than in 1989 when the wage boards were regionalized. On average, real wages now are worth 23% less than in 1989. Despite the growth, despite all this urbanization, blah, real wages are falling. The only exception is the blue line on top, NCR. Didn't even increase by much. Over 35 years, it increased by 4%. Next slide. So what is all that joblessness, low incomes, rising poverty rooted in? The Philippine economic structure. These are the shares of the economy by industry since 1946. Main point I want to stress is that the blue line on top that starts dipping after 1980, those are the economy's production sectors. Agriculture, manufacturing, agriculture, manufacturing, construction, and mining. This chart categorically shows, since neoliberal globalization, symbolically started by the 1979 World Bank Structural Adjustment Loan, under neoliberal globalization, production has been falling constantly as a share of the economy. Manufacturing is its smallest since 1949. It's only about less than 18%. It's 17.3% of the economy. Agriculture at less than 8%, smallest in the country's history. On the other hand, services have been increasing, and at some point in the 1990s, the Philippines became a service economy more than a producing economy. And for us, it's the single biggest reason for economic backwardness, low jobs, low incomes. The Philippine economy is pathologically incapable under globalization of creating jobs because the most profitable sectors aren't good for national development. Next slide. Sorry. Okay. This slide is quite important. We're a market-driven economy. Economic activity is lively where profits are to be made. So, that's the reality we have to work with. What this table shows in a very messy way, so don't look at the table, just listen to me. It lists the 13 richest Filipinos and their corporations. So by extension, the 13 richest Filipinos and basically the country's 13 biggest corporations. The columns are economic sectors. From agriculture on the left, the orangey bits are different sectors of manufacturing, food, etc., etc. Then the gray parts on the right side, services. Three things we want to stress here. First, where are the billions in the previous slide coming from? It's coming from the grayed out areas. These are the sectors where the oligarchs and conglomerates are. Clearly, they're not so much in agriculture, manufacturing, but they're heavily in services. Point number one. Point number two, why are profits not equal to development? Because a lot of those services, they're actually not labor intensive. That's what people usually think about services. So I know you can't see it, but on the very, very top row, we looked at total employment, percentage of total employment in the sectors where the oligarchs are. You can't see it, but I'll just take my word for it. Power only has 0.2% of employment. Water only has 0.2% of employment. Telecommunications has just 1% of employment. Transportation, if you take out our jeepney drivers, our tricycle drivers, just focus on the big transport logistics firms, about 1.5% of employment. Finance, 1.4% of employment. What's the point? These are not productive activities in the sense of producing something. They provide services. But the profits and wealth from these sectors come from holding an asset, usually monopolistically, and charging for that. So the problem with that is one, they don't create very many jobs. Secondly, you don't actually learn much from providing real estate or the other utility services. You don't develop your technology. You don't develop high productivity activities. And third, because not creating enough jobs, it's actually not felt by very many Filipinos. So the Philippine economy is service-oriented, but service-oriented not because we're in the post-industrial era, but because we're in the pre-industrial backward era. Next slide. Oops. Sorry, got spoiled. Next slide. Okay. Manny Villar, Ricky Rezon, Ramon Ang are the three richest Filipinos. Manny Villar, Ricky Rezon, and Ramon Ang are also behind 3 of the 5 biggest political parties in the country. Manny Villar, Nationalista Party, Ricky Rezon, National Unity Party, Ramon Ang, National People's Coalition. So their profits are there, but if you actually also track the shares of Congress, the Senate, House of Representatives, and governorships, not coincidentally, the exact same period that they have soaring profits was also when they have larger shares of the Senate, the House, and governorships. So a clear example of political power translating to corporate power, translating to corporate profits, translating to oligarch billionaire wealth. Right now, they are hopefully correct estimation. 38% of senators come from these 3 billionaire parties. 40% of the House of Representatives comes from these billionaire parties. 38% of governors come from these billionaire parties. Dapat next lang ako. This is actually just employment data